Welcome everyone to this special session, this live Q&A session with Jane McCarthy, otherwise known as Jane Storm. So excited to be able to discuss her topic. I'll let her introduce that in a minute. But thank you all for being here, and yeah, thank you for being here, Jane.
Thank you. Thanks. It's a new year. It's amazing. We're already 7 days into 2025. It's a wild thing that here we are, getting ready to embark in this year.
Yeah, I love the idea of having new beginnings, fresh starts. And so I get excited about this time of the year because I get to rethink and replan and reanalyze some things. But I think your topic ties into that perfectly. So maybe just give us a quick 5-minute recap of your presentation for those who haven't yet seen it, and then we'll get into some questions.
Great. So my name is Jane Storm. I worked in corporate America at Verizon for 30 years. And in 2019, I took a package, had the choice to take it. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I remembered being with my vendor a couple of years prior to that. And I walked into their creative department and there was a huge sign and it said Jane Storm. And I said, "What is that?" And they said, "When you show up, we don't brainstorm, we Jane Storm. You connect people with ideas better than anybody we've ever met before." And I said, "Okay, that's going to be the name of my company." And from there, I added positive force for your future. Over the next 5 years, I didn't know that my world would take me to India, that my world would take me to doing training around the world on Zoom and Teams and meeting people from all races, colors, creeds, countries. And what I realized is that I'm a hope activator. And what is a hope activator? It's someone that holds on to positive energy. It doesn't mean that there aren't problems. It just means that there are possibilities. And so my whole purpose is to come from a place of looking at what are the benefits of hope, and there are a lot of benefits. Studies link hope to improved physical health and 12% lower risk of cardiovascular problems and stomach problems when you have hope. And, when you think about hope, it's really so many of us get caught up in fear, and fear is the what if, and the hope is even if. And so when we're thinking about where we want to go, it's a matter of focusing on those possibilities and the positive outcomes instead of fear, which emphasizes threats or causing avoidance, or we get paralyzed where we say we can't, or I'm afraid, I'm not going to be able to do it. And then hope inspires creativity. It gives us a different perspective on life. Action, when it's in the fear based, can bring defensiveness. And then hope, one of the things that I learned when I was working with a company called Our Sisters, we filmed women's stories around the country and the world. And what I learned is resilience, and hope is resilience. You go through a lot, but if you have hope, you can have the persistence to get through the challenges. Because if you have the fear, it depletes your energy, and you can risk burnout, and you can risk disengaging in life, where hope gives you the ability to want to learn more, to be curious, to fight for those possibilities and what they look like. And when I look at my strengths, which became a process for me about 4 years ago, I did the Clifton Strengths Assessment, which is a 160 question assessment. It takes about 20 minutes. It's used universally in many of corporate America. It's used in the military, in colleges, and it's based on the premise from Don Clifton, who said, "What would we do if we focused on what was right with people instead of what was wrong?" What would we do if we focused on what was right with people instead of what was wrong? And that was a light bulb moment for me. And when I took the assessment, it made sense that hope is so important to me because positivity is my number one strength out of the 34. And so when I look at things, people are always surprised and they think, is she really that happy or is she really that positive? And the truth is, I come from hope. I have since I was a little girl. When I gave my Barbie doll to Leah on the tarmac of JFK Airport when she was a Vietnamese refugee adopted by one of our family friends, I gave her my only Barbie doll. And I knew at that moment it was pivotal because I could see the hope in her eyes. And then you fast forward 30 years and we adopted my son. And it was like a full circle moment of coming around. And then to go to India and be involved with youth in India has just been something that has been able to bring me to a place where I believe that we need a community of mentors who have a positive purpose to bring hope around the world and spread that. And the way to look at that is through the DNA of hope. Let's declare it. What's one area in your life that you need to hold on to positive energy and declare it? And then when you want to nourish it, you're looking at what are the habits that you need in order to sustain that hope. And then when you're activating it, you're looking at what's the steps now that I need to take so that after I declare it, I nourish it, I can activate it and keep it going. So that's the work that is bringing me into the forefront to strive and thrive in 2025.
I love that. It's such an important message, this one of positivity and focusing on the good in others, in the possibilities of your life. I love that so much. I like playing devil's advocate a little bit, so I always push back on people a little bit, in a nice way, right?
Yep.
But just to see, for those skeptics or for the people that do look at you and think, how can you be that positive all the time with all the things we're facing in the world? What do you say to them? How do you break them out of that mindset that um they're maybe stuck in where they don't feel, much positivity, or they don't know what to grasp onto in terms of that hope?
Yeah, I think it's the tools and the people you surround yourself with. It's important to have a trust team. It's important to have a team of people. And if it's not in your personal life, it's getting help. It's getting the support that you need. It's spending the time really looking at what makes you tick, what makes you positive, what is it that is bringing you joy. And if there is nothing bringing you joy, that is a bigger thing to look at. There may be a chemistry imbalance. There may be so much pain going on in your life that you need someone to talk to, or you need a support group to get to it. On any given day, we're all faced with problems. So it's a matter of looking at it and saying, what are the positive outcomes I can get from this day, from this situation? And what are the barriers to getting me there? And how can I then move to the next level so that I can show up authentic and feeling that I cannot feel great today and know it's not forever.
Yeah, I love that. One of my questions that comes to mind now is, there are people in my life that struggle with this idea of having hope. Um,
Yeah.
and so, I can't do it for them, but as a support, I mean, how do you go about that? If you see someone else that is maybe struggling, how can you step in and help others in this sense?
It's about building community. Um, I just went down to Tennessee. I raised two adventurers. I live in New York, and both of our kids, one's 23 and one's 26, 27, are in Nashville and Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we had, 32 hours of driving and listened to a lot of podcasts. And we listened to the Surgeon General talk about loneliness as an epidemic in the world. And I think when you're lonely, you don't have hope. And a lot of it has to come with this, right? And the social media and what we're doing, what we're putting into our bodies and our minds. And the other thing that's huge that comes along with this is comparison. So I was asked today what my kryptonite is, and I said OPOs. And he looked at me and I said, other people's opinions. I am a mature woman and I'm still going through that. I was on a call yesterday with a bunch of women who still are having problems with confidence in a very male dominated world. So there's always going to be this. So when you have to come up with what's going to work for you. So one of the things that I do is coaches need coaches too, right? So I look at, so what? I had a situation recently with a family member, and I had to first say to myself, what's the story I'm telling myself? Right? Because a lot of us are putting our own imagination and creative perception in between our ears of what we think the situation is. Then to say, so you say, so what? And then say, why am I feeling that way? What's coming up for me? And then what now? What now? And a lot of the times it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's other people's opinions. If we can stand in our power and stand in our grace and have positive expectations for ourselves, it takes away worrying about what other people think of us or um, that victim mode. When we are in there's a man named David Hawkins, he's a scientist. He talks about force versus power. When you're in force, you're in shame, defense, ego, blame, uh, misunderstanding, all of those guilt, pride. And then this could be in any conversation. And then what you want to at least get to is neutrality, right? Just get to the neutral. But when you're in a difficult conversation, a lot of times it happens with family members, but it can help with others as well. You want to be in your strengths or your power, which is facts, understanding, empathy, love, serenity, boundaries, understanding, willingness, joy, peace. And so that's the stuff that I'm working on is that when I'm feeling bad about myself, when I am hopeless, I instantly ask myself, what is making me be in force? And 99% of the time, it's my expectations, my assumptions, or my ego are out of balance.
Wow. It's so fascinating to think about that, this idea that yeah, when we're in force, right? I've never really thought about it in those terms, and I think it's very helpful. Um, I'm curious to know how I mean, is it really just that simple that I mean, you can think about that and then make the change, or like walk us through kind of the process of getting out of that position of force a little bit more.
I am a reactor. I instantly react. It's something that comes very quickly to me to react. So over now, I will tell you, becoming a coach has helped. When I went to become an International Coach Federation PCC, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Not, I want to say that because Nino, it was I was learning about myself in order to then coach others. So, for instance, over the holidays, something came up with a sibling. I was furious. I instantly got on the phone. Thank God my sibling did not pick up. Thank God, right? So I had times to step back and say, if I was coaching someone, what would I do? And the first thing I said is, I'm in force. How do I get out of force? What are the facts of this situation? What's the story I'm telling myself? And how do I want to show up with this person when I do have a conversation? And it was that I was able to say factually that my feelings were hurt, that I didn't feel happy about the situation, and that I let that person come back, tell me how they felt, and then I was able to say, so what? What am I feeling now? Okay, that person responded. They gave me the reason why it happened. And now, what now is let it go. Life is too short. So I had to bring myself through that. And when we look at who we are as people, really what we care about most is to be seen, heard, valued, and understood.
Absolutely.
So if we're feeling that any of those are out of whack, then we're in force. So it's a matter of how do I get my strengths and my power so that I can feel seen, heard, valued, and understood. And if I'm hurting someone else and they come to me, the other thing I tell my coaching clients all the time is never start with you. You did dot, dot, dot. It instantly puts them on defense, it instantly puts them into force. You always want to come from how and what. Ask them a question from how or what based on the behavior that upset you and the situation that it happened in. So, as factually based as it could be without all of the history that comes from the relationship.
I love that. So, I mean, just yeah, boiling it down in terms of simple fact, what happened. I mean, I think this is all really helpful advice. It makes me think a lot about how I react to things and my process to letting go, right? That's such a big piece of this is not letting my ego hold me back from forgiving
Yes.
and just moving beyond it. I struggle with that for sure.
And most of us do. Most of us, there are a lot more people with big egos or egos than people that are humble in the world. That's just the truth, you know? And so knowing the tools and knowing to be self-aware. So you're self-aware of that. So these tools can help you, I'll send you this. So it becomes something that you look at. I'll tell you a story. So during the pandemic, my son was living with us, um, late teens, early 20s. And we had one of the biggest fights of our lives. And he decided that he wanted to tell me everything that I had done wrong in his life.
Wow.
And my husband didn't want him to do it. And I remembered when I wanted to let my mom know some of the stuff that had happened in my childhood, she could never hear it. She wanted to start her life from her 50s when she was a shaman, totally into Huna, totally healed in her mind, that didn't want to go backwards to our childhood. I said, I'm not going to do that to my kid. So I had this in front of me and I held it. And he had his composition book and he would read what he wanted to say about me. And I'd look down at the card and say, how can I get out of force with this? And some of them, Nina, were, I'm your mother. This is just the way it's supposed to be. Others were things I had no clue that were hurting him. And I was able to hear it because I had a tool in front of me that said, don't let your ego, your pride, and your defense and shame get in the way of healing this relationship. And it changed the trajectory of our relationship from that moment on because he felt seen, he felt heard, he felt understood, and he felt valued. And by the way, I felt seen, heard, understood, and valued
I
as we
love that.
went through that.
Yeah, I mean, that's powerful. So the note card that you're holding up, for anyone that is watching, maybe we can share that.
Sure.
If you have a like a digital
I
version.
do. I have a digital, and I even have how you can shift into your strengths on the back. So I will
Great.
get that as a digital slide.
Great. Yeah, that would be great to share with our audience. I think that would be helpful. We need little reminders like that because so
Mhm.
often we forget, right? We know we have the training or we know the program we need to run to be able to move beyond things, but
Yeah.
it's just difficult to remember sometimes, and especially when your feelings are involved, right? You get
Yes.
maybe into a heated argument, right? And you want to lash out or respond in a way that maybe matches the other energy that's coming at you, right?
Hmm.
And yes, so I need all the help and reminders that I can get, because that happens all the time for me. I'm far from perfect when it comes to my responses,
Hmm.
and even just this concept of hope. There so many times in my life where I've let it beat me down, the loss of
Mm.
hope. And it's
Yeah.
prevented me from maybe being able to take advantage of certain opportunities, right? It's held me back in my life. And so I know that that is so crucial. And
Yeah.
I really love that you've made it your mission, to share this with other people and to make this difference in the world. Um, and I'm curious, I guess my next question would be, um, I always like hearing the kinds of results people are getting, and so maybe speak to how some of your clients' lives have changed as they've implemented these things. I always love hearing those types of stories. So maybe share a little bit with our audience there.
Yeah. I have a client that was absolutely in force at work, massively in force, and having a really bad time with their boss. And we shifted it from this was someone that has worked at the company for a very long time. Their boss is new, their boss is younger, their boss seems to not have respect. Now, once again, that's the story my client is telling themselves, right?
Right.
So we shifted it to my client being a mentor. And instead of calling their boss a boss, calling them their mentee. And what could my client teach them about the situation? And how can my client shift from defense to coming in their power and showing up with strength and understanding and empathy? Because that was what was needed. And there has been a shift. There has been a shift, and that shift came because there was an opening for looking at someone from a different perspective than before. The other is I've worked with a company where there was a conflict going on in an even more of a situation than this. And we were able to look at why they were in defense or anger or shame or pride. And then we looked at the conflict of why one group was feeling one way and the other group. And then what we did is we said, okay, what's the common ground? Where are we agreeing? And then where are we totally disagreeing? And then how are we going to get back? What are the steps that are needed so that we can get back to not having to be exactly on the same page, but to know what our strengths are so that we can be in a room together and be able to work together on a common goal with the steps that are needed to make it work. And what happened is we went through the DNA of hope, and they declared where they wanted to put their positive energy, and they wrote a declaration of hope on what they all wanted to believe as essentially, essentially a mission statement for this, right? And then came up with what are the actions that have to be taken? What are the habits? What, it comes down to trust, communication, work life balance, stress reduction. But the big ones are trust and communication, and people feeling, once again, seen, heard, valued, and understood, right? And so when you put those into nourishing hope, then you can come up with a plan. And the plan is, how do you make this then go forward? And who is the supporting person on each bullet point so that it's specific to this team's going to own this piece. This team is going to own this piece. And having it all lay out in black and white, in color, on a piece of paper, so that it's just not in your head as this esoteric thing of hope. It's a process, it's a plan, it's a commitment, it's an action. Hope is resilience. It's wanting to move forward. It's positive energy, action based to make a difference.
I love that. I just realized that we're pushing up on our time. This conversation's been so fun. It's just kind of run away on me. But I wanted to really quickly, if we have anyone here who does have a question for Jane, if you want to leave it in the chat, maybe we can get to one of those if there are any questions. So if you have a question, just put it in the chat right now. Otherwise, I mean, this has been a really great conversation. Your presentation is amazing. So if you haven't seen that already, definitely go check that out. The last thing, it doesn't really look like we have anyone raising their hand in the chat. Um, Danielle says, such a powerful conversation. Love this. That's great feedback.
Thanks.
Thanks, Danielle. Um, where can people go to connect with you and learn more about, what you do?
JaneStorm.com. They can find, and I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Jane Storm _Hope Activator. I have a Hope Activator community on Facebook. So you can find me there as well.
Amazing. And we do have your profile on our website. And I
Yes.
think under your presentation video, we have a link to join your Hope Activator community. I think that's what we put there.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this, go and check that out and connect with Jane. Thank you so much for being here. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm really excited for people to hear this and take action to bring more hope into their lives because that's such a needed thing. So thank you again, Jane.
Thanks,
I
Nina.
really appreciate you, and
Thanks,
we'll see
Danielle.
everyone in the next session. Okay, I'm gonna end the recording there. Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I really
Great.
appreciate you. It's unfortunate we didn't get a lot of questions, or we didn't get any questions, but
But now you'll continue to put this out though, right? So things
yes,
will come. Yeah. So that happens a lot. I think, timing is everything. So Peg Buckley, my mom would say EWAP, everything works out perfectly. So it's going to come. It just may take a little bit of time.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you being willing to give your time, for this. So thank you. And I do remain hopeful. Again, like I said, we're still running a campaign.
Yep.
We had some setbacks with that. Like for some reason, it was rejected. It took a few days to even.
I know. It's a lot of work to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
is.
And we've had a lot of hiccups, but I'm still pressing on, and I'm,
Good.
at the end of this, um, I served a mission for my church, and the one thing that kept me going, because there were tough times where I didn't feel like I was succeeding really.
Mhm.
Um, but the one thing that always gives me hope, right, that I kind of fall back on is that if I can change the life of one person, then it will
That's
have been
right.
worth it. Right. And so you never know who you're touching, who you're connecting with, what kind of impact you're really having on the world. And so, um, you know, only God knows,
That's the
really.
most important. Yeah, that's the most important piece is that you have no idea how many voyeurs are out there. There are so many people that are watching things that never say a word until they need to. I have been in the supermarket after working on the American Cancer Society Relay for Life for 10 years, and someone came up to me and said, I love your blog. I said, I don't have a blog. They're like, I read your stuff every day on Facebook. The next thing you know, they become my client. I had no idea they even knew who I was.
Yeah.
No idea. So one of the things that Mel Robbins has said recently is when we do this stuff, do it for ourselves. And when our purpose and our feeling and our energy comes out, it gets contagious. And then people come on board. But if we come from our piece, then it's up to them if they want to embrace it or not. That's not, we can't control that.
Yeah.
We have no control over that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree. And it's
Yeah.
such a powerful reminder.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you. I really appreciate those words. And again, your time has been amazing. And I look forward to staying connected. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Please do. Okay. I'll talk to
Okay.
you soon. All right. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.